Hello, everyone. My name is Tasslyn Magnusson. I'm an independent researcher and a fellow with EveryLibrary Institute, where we focus on book bans, research, coalitions, and community building. I am very happy to be your host, your guest host, for this segment of EveryLibrary's Banned Books Week Fest today. EveryLibrary is the National Political Action Committee for libraries. The last few years have seen an alarming rise in book bans in schools and public libraries around the country. EveryLibrary has been directly involved in over 100 campaigns to oppose censorship and defend the First Amendment, helping to restore books and preserve access for readers. Its Fight for the First campaign platform, combined with pro bono campaign advising, is making a real difference. I invite you to check it out at fightforthefirst.org. All week, EveryLibrary is focusing not only on the problem of book bans, but also on changing the headline. We need to reconnect with reading and the joy it brings. We want to celebrate readers and writers in libraries because it's not only a fight against censorship, it's a fight to have a society where every story can be told and discovered. That is why I am so excited to talk with award-winning author Malinda Lo about their books, their creative process, and their connection to readers and libraries. Let me officially welcome Malinda Lo and read her bio because it's amazing. Malinda Lo is the New York Times bestselling author of 7 novels, including Last Night at the Telegraph Club, which was a winner of the National Book Award, the Stonewall Book Award, and the Asian Pacific American Award for Literature, as well as the Michael L. Prince and Walter Dean Myers honors. Her books have received 15 starred reviews and been finalists for multiple awards, including the Andre Norton Award and the Lambda Literary Award. She has been honored by the Carnegie Corporation as a great immigrant, and she lives in Massachusetts with her wife and their dog. Welcome.
Hi, Tasslyn. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of your Banned Books Festival. I'm so happy to be here to talk with you, especially.
I'm very excited. So, name of the dog first.
Oh, my dog's name is Leia. She's named for Princess Leia, obviously. When we adopted her, she was a rescue, and the only thing we knew was that she was white and had very big ears. So we named her Leia, and the name has really she has grown into the name. I could go on forever, but I know we're not here to talk about my dog today.
I always like to touch base on the dogs first. I have 2 myself. Rescues and
what are your dogs' names?
Odin and Sophie. Odin received his name instead of Fart Belly from our kids when they were small. And Sophie came with their name. But
awesome.
Let's talk about your books and writing and the joy of writing. I want to highlight, I kept it down here, Scatter of Light. This cover is incredible. It makes me happy whenever I see it. But I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how this book emerged and how the story emerged for you.
Sure. So A Scatter of Light, I started working on it way back in 2013. So wow, that's like 11 years ago now. So going back into the distant memory, I think it came to me first through the main character of Arya Tong West. She is an 18-year-old girl who has a really transformative but difficult first love. She came to be very strongly formed from the very beginning. I felt I knew her right from the start, which is not the way it usually goes with my books. I often have to spend a lot of time getting to know them, but Arya was very familiar to me, probably partly because A Scatter of Light is set in the real world. It's set in Northern California in 2013. And Arya has an experience that a lot of young queer women have. Her story is is not unusual actually, even though it is very painful for her. So that's where it started. It started for me with the main character, and her voice was very strong from the very start.
So, what there's something you wrote about this actually on your you do a review on your website on the newsletter of kind of your year in review, and you
Mhm.
talked about something that I'd like to read
Oh, okay.
about how you're writing, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Um,
No.
it says more of that time is devoted to immersing myself in the world of the book, not writing actual sentences. Oh, um, more of the time involves thinking and feeling my way into the characters' lives. Uh, what is that like? Like for Arya, she came very strongly to you.
Mhm.
But what is that like to have been?
Well, it involves one of my favorite things, research. So, I love to read memoirs about people who have done similar things to what my characters have done. I talk to people who have jobs like my characters have, or I visit the places in the book if I can. Obviously, I can't do that if it's a fantasy novel necessarily, but I can go to places like it. And I try to do things that my characters have done if it's realistic and if it's possible.
Mm,
So, for example, in Scouter of Light, one of the characters, Arya's grandmother, is an artist and a photographer. And my editor, who is also a photographer, he actually found the kind of camera that Joan, Arya's grandmother, uses in the 1970s. And he got one for me to try out. And so I taught myself how to use her 1970s era medium format film camera. And
wow.
it definitely changed some of the stuff that I wrote in the book. And it was a really interesting way to literally gain some perspective on
Mm,
Arya's grandmother. It was a really fun thing to do.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it is a little bit of writing and a little bit of living your
Mhm.
characters' lives almost and experiencing that. As you start writing a book, do you have any particular writing pathways or rituals or traditions you use, or is every book different?
Every book is different in terms of like how I come to the story and how
Mm,
the story develops. When I am actually like writing sentences during the first draft, I do have kind of a regimented way of approaching this. So during
oh,
I hate writing the first draft. It is my least favorite thing to do. I mean, I love writing, but writing the first draft can feel very difficult because I often don't really know the characters yet, and so I don't know what to make them do. I don't know what kind of reactions they have. So it's hard. I have to go through it to understand these characters. So for the first draft, because I know that it's hard, I generally make myself do things a particular way. So I always meditate in the morning before I write. I've started to do this thing called morning pages, which is a daily practice where you write 3 pages in a journal. It's like stream of consciousness writing. It's not like nice writing. It's like, I have to take my dog to the park.
yeah.
We have to buy some milk at the store. Like, it's just like get your brain out on the paper. So I do that. And then when I write, I have a goal. When I'm first drafting, I try to do 1,000 words a day. And I sit down in my chair, which is right back there. I sit there and I write um, 1,000 words until I'm finished. So sometimes that takes me like 30 minutes. Sometimes it takes me like 8 hours. So I do the 1,000 words. I do not revise them. And when I'm done, when I hit 1,000 or like whatever, 1,023 or whatever, the end of a sentence, I stop. I really make myself stop because I've noticed that if I do more than that, like if I feel really on fire and I want to keep writing and I write like 2 or 3,000 words, I have done that a few times, but then it's like I run out of words. I can't write then as much the next day. It's really hard. So I really try to just do 1,000 words a day. And sometimes that's really, really hard. But if I do that, then, 100 days later, I have 100,000 words. And that's like 3 months and 3.5 months. So I keep moving forward, and I really try to not revise anything until I'm done with the first draft, because I never know what the book is going to look like until I'm done with the first draft. It has to get out before I can fix it, basically.
I'm sure other people have said it, but I remember Jason Reynolds saying you have to write it so you can write it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I always tell that when I work with the Society for Young Inklings and teen writers. And I always am like, that's like your first job. You have to write it so you can write it.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
makes sense to me.
Yeah, I heard someone describe it once as, if you think about sculpting something out of clay, when you are sculpting something out of clay, you start with clay and then you sculpt it. But writing a novel, you have to make the clay first. Okay, so
Yeah.
first you make the clay. That's the first draft. And once you have the clay, then you can sculpt it. Then you can start to take away what is unnecessary. But you gotta make the clay first.
That's a really good way of thinking about it.
Yeah, I wish I remembered who said it, because it wasn't me. Somebody said it, and it's stuck in my head ever since.
Yeah, I will use that with the teen. I will use that with myself, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
With the teen writers, for sure. As you're writing, what is the role of research in libraries?
Oh, wow. Well, research and libraries go hand in hand, obviously. I'm always going to the library to get stuff. I try very hard to not. I mean, I don't have an inexhaustible fund of research funding, so I try to get most of my research from the library, and
Mhm.
I go to my public library, but I also still use the college libraries where I'm an alum, because sometimes they offer you alumni access to their academic collections, which is great, because I am so nerdy that I love reading academic papers on very, very esoteric subjects. So there's so much information on the internet, and it's just everywhere. So I think it's important to start at the library, because you know that the information you find there has been, well, is more likely to have been fact checked and to come
Yeah.
from a legitimate source. So I absolutely start at the library. I go to the library all the time, and then like I sometimes wonder if the librarians are like, oh, there she is again. This is like the second, third, fourth time this week. But they're very kind. They never like make me feel weird or anything. So obviously, as a writer, libraries and librarians are invaluable advocates for my books,
Yeah.
getting them in the hands of readers in their communities. So I love libraries from all different sides.
Yes. Do you have a memory? A lot of people talk about this, but like a memory of your first library card or a librarian that really made a difference when you were young?
I just loved going to the library. Like when I was a kid, like some of my earliest memories of my childhood in Boulder, Colorado are of going to the Boulder Public Library. I remember because they had this children's room that had a tunnel. There was like a seating, like carpeted seating over the tunnel, and you could crawl into the tunnel as a kid. It probably wasn't very big, but I was
Yeah.
little, so I recall this as being a gigantic tunnel, and
Uh-huh.
it was so much fun. I loved going there. And, I've of course gone to public libraries my whole life, and I still do. So when I like to go visit my books at the library, which is fun, but also sometimes it's like, is it checked out or do they not have it? This is the question that always comes to mind when I visit my books.
No, I bet. So, you have done, just to talk about kind of the banned book part of things. You've done a lot of research about, well, whether or not your books are on the shelf or not, and why. Can you
Mhm.
talk about what caused you to want to dive in deep into that research?
Well, You have done way more research into this than I have, which is amazing. And I've only been researching my own books. Like the reason I started trying to track when and where they were being banned is because nobody else is going to tell me. Like the generally speaking, people do not reach out to me when their community bans my books. And I not all authors want to know this information, but I really wanted to know. I wanted to know where it was being banned and why, and I don't always know why, you know. But I also know that the mainstream media usually focuses on only a few specific banned books, you know, like ALA's top 10 most banned
Yeah.
list that comes out every year, and that leaves out literally thousands of titles, and including mine. So mine are not the most banned books in the country by far, you know, but they're banned a lot. So I that's why I wanted to know. I wanted to know where it was happening and which books were being banned, because I have published 7 novels, so I
Mhm.
wanted to see which ones were being banned, and it's been really instructive.
Yes, finding out the why of why books are banned. At a certain point, when I first started this, I was like, oh, there must be some sort of rationale. And what I have discovered slowly but surely is like there is actually a lot of ignorance and even
Mhm.
hate and homophobia out in the world more than I mean, I knew, but I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now we know so much more. Um, but you're right that there are thousands. When people
Mhm.
ask me for like the top 10, I'm like, well, how about actually the middle 100? I'd love
Mm.
to share with you the amazing literature that sits in that middle range of books that are banned.
Mhm.
What have you learned about sort of the crisis of banning from doing that research or from these last 3
Mm.
years?
Well, it's really interesting because I have realized that the movement to ban books is both incredibly organized and also often extremely random.
Yeah.
So it's like these two things exist at the same time. Like since last night at the Telegraph Club was called out by Moms for Liberty, you know, it has in fact been challenged and banned quite a lot, but that doesn't mean it's consistently banned. So a lot of book banners or people who want to ban these books say that they're against any book that is rated a 4 or above on Book Looks, which is Moms
Yeah.
for Liberty's rating database about how bad these books are, right? So Telegraph Club gets a 4, but it's not always banned in communities
Yeah.
that ban plenty of other books. And interestingly, I've noticed a few cases where schools attempt to ban books of mine that they don't actually even own in their libraries. So that's so weird to me, and it kind of shows me that even though there is this far right movement to censor books, it really relies on local actors, and the local actors in those communities are really not well-informed readers. You know,
Mhm.
they're taking their orders from on high, but they don't actually know what books are out there because they don't read. So it's a very interesting and weird situation. That is what I have learned. Do you think that that is the case? How would you characterize it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always so perplexing,
Mhm.
because some books end up on a list, other books don't. Some authors have their entire middle grade YA and picture books attacked. Some don't. I
Mhm.
mean, and many times they're asking to ban books that aren't even there,
Yeah.
right? Because they appeared on a list, and the amount
Yeah.
of fear. I mean, a lot of times when I'm working with people through EveryLibrary's work and the fight for the first stuff is about like, how can we take the temperature down? And how can we talk about the books that we love? And
Mhm.
so I'm always like, you don't need to answer the crazy. You don't need to answer all the rhetoric. You just need to speak for books in your community, for readers in your community, because we know kids love. Now, I can't tell you how many kids have talked to me, especially with the teens that I mentor. like about your book.
Mm.
And about what it's like to read your books, and or Jason Reynolds books or Alana K. Arnold's. I mean, there are so many people that love these books, and I'm like, you just have to go up there and speak to that, because
Mhm.
we need those quiet folks that are getting scared to not be scared and
Yeah.
speak up and be brave.
Mhm.
But there's no rhyme or reason to any of it.
You'd think there would be, but no, it's very random a lot of the times, the stuff that is banned.
Yeah, people will often tell me that the titles are wrong. And so one of the things that I've learned is, like, nobody spells any of these titles correctly.
No. No.
I have
My name
tracked.
is always misspelled.
Oh,
It's often misspelled in the book banning, like the like forms that people fill out, it's often misspelled. I've noticed. So it's clear they don't have the book
in front of
in
them.
front of
No,
them.
not at all.
Or if they do, they're not looking at it. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the ones that I've noticed, with Ellen Hopkins' books, her imprint, Margaret Elderberry, I think, her imprint shows up as the author on many books.
oh, that's
People are just,
funny.
like, opening it up, and
Yeah.
there you go. I
Okay.
mean, and so there's no real clarity, and it's ignorance. And but watching communities, like, this is what I do love about this work. I do not love counting book bans. Let's be clear. I do it because it seems to help people, and because I originally thought you would all know when your books were banned. Like,
No.
somebody was telling you, and now I'm like, that's me.
Yeah, you're the
I
one who's telling us. You're the
Yeah.
one.
Uh, but what I do love is when I go into a community, I'm like, tell me about the books you love. And,
Mhm.
like, let's practice that. And they are like, oh, let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about that. And there's so much literature and so much love of reading that it's wonderful. It's not wonderful that they have to be in that position,
Right.
but,
I know what you
like,
mean,
we
yes. People
yeah,
love people love books, and people do not love book banning,
no,
which is it's a backwards situation here.
we're in. Um, do you have any groups or organizations that have really made a difference for you as you've walked through this crisis of book banning that you want to shout
Well,
out?
definitely EveryLibrary and your work with EveryLibrary. I mean, your spreadsheets are immense and a little scary and also so valuable, because that's one of the main places I find out about what's happening with my books. Obviously, I have been following Kelly Jensen's literary activism newsletter, which you should subscribe to if you're interested in book bans, because every week there's dozens of new cases, and Kelly rounds them all up for you in an easy to access newsletter. And so that's really great. I do want to say my publisher, Penguin Random House, has been incredible throughout this whole situation. You know, they really stood up early on, and I'm very proud that they have been taking these book banners to court. I was very honored and proud to have the opportunity to be a co-plaintiff in a lawsuit against the state of Iowa's book banning law, and that started with my publisher. So I'm really grateful to my publisher for standing up for the freedom to read and for freedom of speech. It's really good to know they have my back.
Yeah. Yeah, they have been right there,
Yes.
asking what to do. And in fact, I talked to a Penguin Random House person yesterday. I talked to Mr. Skip Dye. Um,
Yes. He's been a huge
but
advocate in this
yeah,
arena. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's so important, for all of these things. How about librarians? Have you um, had any work or any connections with librarians during this crisis? That, I mean, they've been under the fire too. Authors
Yeah.
and librarians, I think, are the unsung heroes of this experience.
I have definitely, communicated with librarians on, on social media. Some of them have messaged me, and I've certainly tried to offer my words of support when I can. Because librarians definitely are on the front lines of this, and they get attacked personally in their own communities for supporting the First Amendment, which is like a cornerstone of not only the United States, but libraries. So it's really ridiculous and harmful to them that they're being attacked for this. And I really value the work that librarians do every day at their jobs. You know, it's amazing. So I definitely want to say that. The difficult thing is, you know, I'm me in my town in Massachusetts. And it's not that book bans don't happen here, but it's very, very low level of book banning. So I wish I could, you know, go speak at school board meetings in various towns where this was happening, but it's physically impossible. And I also think that I'm not sure it would be helpful for me, an outsider, to go to some town in Idaho, and you know what I mean? So, but I definitely support the librarians' work there, and I'm going to continue to speak out about this when I can, definitely on the internet at least. And, you know, because it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. And I think that everyone, you know, we have an election coming up very soon, and everybody needs to make sure they're registered and they need to vote for the Democrats this fall. It's very clear that if the Republicans win, book banning is on their list of things to keep doing.
Yeah. Project 2025. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it is one of the things I tell people, because they'll be like, occasionally authors will come to me and say, so and so librarians wants me to help. I'm not equipped. I'm not there. I don't know how to help. I just want to write my stories. And I'm like, absolutely. I can come in and I'll jump in and do my best. And so will EveryLibrary. I know that your voice has been invaluable, both in the lawsuit and also with librarians and authors across the country, and speaking out about these issues and the impact. Can we talk about readers and what
Sure.
this has done for readers? Or first, tell me about readers in your books. What's it like to hear from the readers?
Oh, it's always really touching. I just got a wonderful message today from someone who read Scatter of Light and Telegraph Club. And, you know, they often share with me very personal stories of their own experiences, um, often about coming out, often about family members who don't accept them, often about how my books showed them that it's okay to be gay. And I feel a big responsibility when I hear from these readers. I want to respect them and thank them for sharing with me their very personal stories. It's really very moving. So this is something I have been privileged to receive for years now, since my first novel Ash came out in 2009. So this is 15 years of getting these kinds of emails and messages from readers, and it's just amazing to me. Like that, when Ash came out, Ash is a lesbian retelling of Cinderella. There were very few queer fantasy novels published in 2009, certainly not in YA. And it was really the first queer book for a lot of people. And it's amazing to me. I'm still getting messages from readers who are like, Telegraph Club or A Scatter of Light was my first queer book. And it just tells me that even though I live in a blue state, in a very liberal environment, you know, that is not the case for everyone. There are plenty of people of all ages. I mean, I get adults emailing me about this, you know, not only young readers. There are plenty of places where coming out and being queer is still very stigmatized. It is still a struggle. And so I'm really glad that my books can sometimes provide a kind of positive escape for these readers. It's really wonderful, and I'm very glad I get to do this.
We, the readers, are also very glad. They're beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful books. And like joyful in many ways, sorrowful,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, Scatterlight is, oh, I don't want to spoil. I could spoil every story probably given half a chance, but they're very real and honest and caring books. My dogs just wandered in
Oh,
behind me. So, any writing experiences or adventures or stories on the horizon that you want to give us a sneak peek on or share about?
Well, I'm currently working on 2 projects, actually. I'm really excited to be working on them both. One is an adult novel and the other is not. So that is all I will say about it right now. I hope to say more soon. I love working on these 2 projects. I am very lucky. I did not think I'd be doing this. One of them was a surprise. It just started like in April. So this is
Oh,
a very
cool.
big surprise. So I feel very lucky that these stories have come to me and I get to work on them.
Mhm. Yes, we are also lucky for that. Um, I forgot to check the clock when we started. So,
We have plenty of time.
um,
It's virtual.
it's virtual. That's right. We can
Time
pass
isn't
time.
real.
Time is an illusion. Um,
Mhm.
I was wondering, oh, um, if you could talk once about the outline slash answer dilemma of writing. Like, do you outline as you research, or do you like are your characters telling you the story?
Well, it depends on the book. You know, it really does. Like I did not outline A Scatter of Light at all. A Scatter of Light is not a plot heavy book.
Yeah.
There's not really a plot. Once I said online that it's like no plot, all vibes. That's what that book is. So there was no outline. But in I wrote a mystery novel once called A Line in the Dark, and I outlined that for sure. And then I got to the end and I realized the end of drafting and I realized, "Oh, I'm wrong. This is not the ending. This is
No.
the wrong ending." And I had to reveal who done it, right? So it was the wrong killer. And so then I had to go back and rewrite it with a with a different ending in mind. And I got there and I realized, "Oh my god, I'm still wrong."
Oh no.
So it took 3 drafts to get to the right ending. So I do outline, but I'm not like beholden to them. Like I will let the book take me where it's going to take me. You know, I don't really yeah. The outline is another way for me to enter the space of telling the story
Mhm.
and kind of get my feet wet before I write the first draft. So I definitely outline. One of the projects I'm working on now has been extensively outlined, and I'm planning on outlining it even more. I don't really know why, but this one feels like it needs to be so deeply outlined. Like I feel like I need to end up with like a 50-page outline
Oh
before
no.
I can write it. And I am not sure why. This is well, I mean, I do know why, but I can't tell you that. But so this time I'm gonna do an extensive outline for that one, more extensive than I've ever done in my life. The other project, no outline whatsoever.
It's really story. The story is what story and the characters are kind of like giving you the path for it.
Yes, it really depends on the book. You know, every book has different demands, especially because I write in so many different genres. Like a different, like a murder mystery requires certain things that a contemporary novel does not. It's just they require different things.
What has been like to jump from different genre to genre for you? Um,
It's just the way I've always done it. So
yeah.
I know that a lot of writers I often get asked this question and I don't actually know any different.
Yes.
So, for writers who write in the same genre repeatedly, I have no idea how they do that. I think I need to switch it up and do something different each time because I like the exploration of knowing a new genre, of getting to know a new genre. I like learning how a new genre works from the writer's perspective. I read all genres of fiction,
Mm.
so it's really fun for me that way. Yeah, I don't know. It would probably be, smarter and more streamlined of me to stay in one lane, but I clearly don't know how to do that.
No, no. I mean, when you just said something, oh, it just slipped away. But like your books, I haven't read A Line in the Dark, but they feel so like I have dove into the pool and I've learned everything possible I can. Like, this is you learning the story, and I've created this world for you.
Mhm.
Please enjoy. And like, I know Ash is very different from Scattered Light and very different from Telegraph Club, but all feel like that's what's uniting them, is sort of this deep experience of character and world and being there.
Thank you. Thank you. I really feel like a sense of place is very important. Like that's one of the primary things I'm always concerned about when I write. I want there to be a palpable sense of place. I want it to feel real. So I approach every book kind of with a fantasy world building perspective. I mean, frankly, every fiction novel requires world building.
Yeah.
So even if it's not a secondary fantasy world, you have to make it real on the page for the reader. So A Line in the Dark, which is an interesting example of this because it is set in New England in like 2015 or whatever. It's contemporary world, but I invented the town that it's set in.
Yeah.
And people have asked me, they're like, where is this town? And I'm like, it doesn't exist.
Feel.
But it's right. I know where it is. I mean, if there was like another dimension, right, like laid over like a
There.
parallel universe, it would be right there. It fits right
Yeah.
into the scenery. Um, yeah, I really am I'm very focused on a sense of place in my novels. It's very important to me for sure.
That is definitely what I feel when I'm in that world.
Mhm.
And that is immersive and an experience of the story that I love.
Yeah, I want the reader to be totally immersed. I want them to be sucked in. I don't want them to feel like the outside world anymore. You know, I want them to be in the story for sure.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh,
Yeah.
I could talk actually for hours. Thank you. I'm always on the book research, book ban serious stuff, but like about writing and what it's like to create worlds is just such a pleasure. I really appreciate the time that you've given to us and to me, because it's about me today.
It is. Thank you so much, Tasslyn. I really appreciated the time to talk with you and to genuinely thank you for all your hard work on the serious topic of book banning. It's really invaluable.
Oh, well, I always tell people thank you for your books and your words, because they've meant something to me, and I know how much they mean to readers that I've run out into in the
Mm.
world. And we're so lucky to have them.
Mm. Thank you.
Hey, I think I have an exit to read about all of these things. But thank you so much. Um, as we wrap up this segment of Every Library Live, I want everyone watching to take a moment to think about how you can help safeguard libraries and the right to read. Every Library is a donor supported organization that is hard at work. I can testify to this every day fighting against censorship and discrimination. I hope you'll consider making a donation to help them continue that critically important work. Please go to everylibrary.org slash 2024 to donate now. I would appreciate it. And thank you again to Malinda Lo for this amazing conversation. And come back tomorrow and the rest of the week for more great conversation like this on Every Library Live. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.